Hi everyone. Just give me a minute to get everything organized. Okay. So this is Lisa from Artist Palette. We are doing the Love You to Death tutorial. So one thing you could do is you can actually trace around the skull if you want to get it exact. This is an 8x10. So you could trace around it through your computer screen or something like that. I'm going to show you how to draw it out too. And you can actually trace around this. I'll show you how to draw it out. Sometimes it's good to just have a bit of an outline if you prefer an outline. So I have my paint palette with white, black. That's a lot of white. We don't need that much white. And then we have our primary colors. So we have primary red, yellow, and phthalo blue. And putting that over to the side. You can have a pencil handy. See, you can draw with your pencil on the black canvas as well. And you can still see your pencil marks, which is good. You can also use white paint. So white paint can also be erased with black in a way, right? So it's not really erasing. It's just you can use black paint to go back over it. It is hard to show on a black canvas, like the outline. So, but you can, luckily, you can still see my pencil marks here. So let's get started on the outline on top of our black canvas. And you can watch this anytime. You can pause, take your time throughout this video. On my 8x10, generally it is kind of like you're making a circle. You're making almost like 3/4 of a circle in a way for the skull. So towards the top, see how it's from the top and going a little bit lower? You can actually trace around a circular object to get most of this circle. You can actually just place a circle to start. See how it looks like a circle? So you can do that. You can find something to get a perfect circle, or you can just make one, right? So you can just make a circle. Then for the lower part, we're going to about 3/4 of the way down. What you want to do, actually, I'm going to start putting it with my white paint on a detailed brush right now. So let's just get this more obvious, just a bit more obvious right here. So you can see it a little bit better now. So the rest of that circle, you don't really need to fill it in. So halfway to 3/4 of the way down. Sorry, 3/4 of the way down from your circle. You're going to bring it out just a little bit of like a swoop. Just a short little one. Nothing too over exaggerated for that cheekbone. And just bring it in. Same with over here. So it's like you're doing it kind of the same on each side. Okay, just bringing that in, bringing that in. So we have that come down just a little bit. And this is just a little bit below from my circle. So it ends just a little bit below that. Not too far down. So this is where my circle ends. I'm just going to put a little mark right here. And then for the rest of the jaw, so the jaw, it's really just from up here. I think it's a good idea to bring it down a little bit and then swoop it across. So down, and then from here, make like almost like a soft smiley face. And bring it down like that. So it's going to give it a nice round jaw when we make that. Okay, let's keep going with some of the outlines. From our cheekbone, we want to mark down where our eyes are going to be. So the eye sockets are going to be. So we're having it come in right around here. It just swoops in. I'm going to bring it in just a tiny bit more. So see how it comes in a little bit? It just goes in slightly from the side. And then this is where we're going to start just the rim of where the eye socket's going to be. So I just bring it up a little bit. And you can vary the size a little bit too. You can do slightly different shapes if you want. So I brought it up and I'm just going to do kind of like just a bumpy circular hole. That's what we're doing for the eye. I bring this in a little bit on the other side. So it comes in a little bit, and this goes into the eye socket as well. So see how this is the rim going around it from the side and along the bottom. So we still have a little bit of that head next to it. And this is one of those things that I just play around with until I'm happy with the size. I want them to be, fairly close together, but not overly. I can always just make it bigger. I'm just making this one a little bit bigger. And don't be confused with the thickness of the white. It makes it look a little bit smaller, but it's going to have more of a black dark filling inside of it. So I still have some space in between, and this is going to be, for the bridge of the nose into the nose down here, which is going to kind of end around where that circle ends down there. Okay, and to start that, just next to the eye on each side, I just do 2 little lines close together. And it's like an upside down heart. So it comes in really narrow and then pretty close to that eye socket. It starts actually just making a heart shape, a very narrow heart shape. It comes up a little bit. And then meet that. Again, you can keep using pencil if you prefer to use pencil. So for the mouth at the bottom, the top part is, so it's like you can make the teeth and everything. You can actually opt out and do only like the top part of the teeth if you prefer, and then leave out the bottom. So in a way, the root of our teeth, they go up quite a bit, and then our teeth come in, and this is going to be the bottom. So what I want to do is when we start painting it in, I just do like thin lines, really close together though. Stuff like that. Close to, I wouldn't start all the way over here. This is where it's actually going to be much darker, but right below where the nose is, this is where taking white paint is a little bit too harsh, but this is where we kind of bring down some of that gum line where the gums would be. And it's slightly curved. It kind of is slightly like curved as it goes upwards. But I'm just bringing down some streaks here so that it flows into the cheek. As you see here, it just kind of flows up. I'm going to take a break from the white. We're going to focus on the teeth more with different colors because I don't want to use white for all of them. It looks a little bit scary. We'll come back to that. But we can start filling in just some details, working our way, just doing a base coat into the top, keeping this nice and dark and more hollow looking. Same with the nose. And then we'll work our way down into where the mouth and the teeth is. Just give me 1 second. I need to get my water cup. All right. I have my water cup. I'm going to use my small brush. I like to just mostly use small brushes for this painting. You can also use some sort of round medium brush. So you can use something a little bit bigger. Okay. Let's start with a teal because I put a lot of teal in the background just for fun. No particular reason. I thought that it would look kind of cool with teal. So I pull white to the side and I take a little piece size or two of blue. So I get more of I'm going to get a sky blue here. And someone's asking about playing on their TV. If you actually have YouTube on your TV that you can go to, you can just search for the tutorial there and play it on your TV. Or if you have an HDMI cable. Okay, so I have a sky blue, and then we're going to take a little small touch of yellow until you're happy with how teal or greenish it sort of looks. It's getting more and more teal as I add a bit more yellow. This seems like a good color. Okay, this is a lot of just have fun with the brush strokes. So I'm going to go right up to the eye. You can always play around with the eye, right? So I just go right up to the eye, kind of a little bit down, close to that. I don't go all the way to the side of the head. See where the eye socket, the rim is around it. I just go right up close to that. It's almost like you're making a bit of a brow on each side. And go around. This is where the socket, the rim of it. So I'm going to follow that up. And I'm just going to do some curved lines. It's going to look a little bit awkward for a little while because you got to start somewhere. It's just going to look a little funny. And someone's asking about if we list art supplies. Yes, we do. It's in the description of this video and on our website. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of blue, or sorry, this teal. You can take a little bit more white if you ever want it to be lighter. See how it's much lighter if I just take a bit more white on my brush. And just kind of just streak it along. I like to put a little bit higher with a bit more white on my brush along the top. And just a little bit on the edge here. So it's very choppy. I didn't just fully outline and fill it all in. You could just fill it all in for sure. Just a little bit on the sides here. So notice my streaks here, just a lot of kind of cross hatching. But first I started with some smooth streaks, kind of rounded, right? So you can see it's nice and rounded. Start with that. And you can add little hints of blue or this teal just throughout, around the nose, underneath the eye, to start there. Okay, so wash this off. Alrighty. Now the next thing we're going to do, we can fill in the eye socket just a little bit with a kind of like a brown. So if you have a pre-mixed brown you'd rather use, go ahead and use it, or we can mix brown together. If you have gold, you can use gold. If you like, you can use raw sienna for kind of a brownish tone. There's so many things you can do instead. If you want some gold too, it looks like I put gold, but it's actually just like a goldish brown. So I'm taking a scoop of yellow and a little bit less of the red. So I'm just taking, actually I'm taking a lot of yellow and very little red. So a couple scoops of yellow and then one little dot or a couple dots of red. So it looks like a yellowy orange. Then you can take a little touch of blue to start making it look a bit more on the brownish side. And a dot more red if it's a bit too greenish looking. So here it's kind of orangey. Doesn't look very pleasant, but we're going to wipe off a lot of the paint. You'll see it how it looks in the painting in just a minute. It kind of gives it like a goldish look, right? That ugly color actually works kind of well. Looks a bit golden. So see how on the inside it's all on the very right side. So I'm just going to wrap it around, circular motions like that. Get it started. You can do a little bit at the bottom of the nose. Then what you want to do is just take black. You don't need to wash off the brush. I just take black. And now I'm going to go just along the socket with more purpose on the shape that I want. Okay, let's bring that in. I left a little bit of this white for the rim around it. I'm just going to leave that. I think the rim of around the eye is nice. So it's good to mostly fill this in. I'm going to wipe off some extra paint here. So I have very little now, and I'm just going to lightly streak it, circular motions. So it looks like that's more faded on that side. Okay, just making it a little bit wider, just a little bit bigger overall. Okay, let's do the other side. So we're going to fill, just outline, fill that in. Just a little bit of black paint left on the brush, and circular motions, very light, so you're just lightly overlapping some of that brownish gold. Okay, and I've made it a little bit wider just over on the top left corner, so it's closer to the nose overall. So if you have a really big gap, bring it in a little bit closer. And with that black still on my brush, we're just going to make sure that we're filling in most of this nose so that only a little bit of the white, so it's really thin, is still kind of showing. And if you haven't put white yet, fill it, just make sure it's filled in, and then you can put a really thin white outline, but I would do the white outline and then put some black to give it more of a thinner, softer outline so it's not too thick going around. And I actually want to get rid of this line where this white circle was. See, black can get rid of pretty much anything. I like to just softly go over some of this teal so it's more just not as bright overall. It's a bit more darker along here. Hi, welcome in, Joanna. A touch of water, a little bit of that black paint, and I like to add a little bit of this black paint just along the side because it's a bit more shadowed along the side outside and away from the eyes. I just put a little bit of black paint here. And gently up the side between the eyes where the nose is. Just kind of streak a little bit of this up here just before it starts wrapping around into where the brow is going to be. Okay. All right, so I'm washing this off. Going back to my more detailed brush, you can use whatever size you think is best. One thing around the eyes is I like to give it more of this, see this nice bright outline kind of going up a little bit on the side here and the side here. Let's take a scoop of white. So these can be any colors. These colors are just to your liking. You don't have to do exactly what I do. I just picked random colors. So you can do various browns. I'm adding a touch of red and a little scoop of yellow to give it kind of like a creamy color. So you can do stuff like this and take a bit more white. You just get it a bit brighter. I'm going to take a touch more yellow. Don't need it too pink unless you want it pink. This is more of a light pinkish color. This is more of a creamy, peachy color. All right, a little touch of water, and I'm going to take my peachy color. So right on the outside, remember we have a little bit of this coming up here, just a bit above the eye. Just a little bit above. So this comes down. This kind of meets with this little cheekbone here too. You can sort of outline that a bit. So just a little bit along the top. Follow this along the bottom. And a little bit up here towards the side. So it kind of disappears over here, and then really close to it, the nose, just a really thin line. Follow a little bit of that nose. Grab a bit more paint. Doing the other side. And just a little bit up from the middle of where this heart shape is. So it's just a bit more of a divide. One of the good things about this too, black is great for cleanup. Once you feel like you have a shape that you like, I take my black, I just wash it off, I take some black, and sometimes when you go a little bit too thick, right, the black is a good way to get that smoothed out. Okay. So back to my peach, going to the other side on that eye, around the socket. Same color or similar color. Bring this in just a little bit. See how it has like a little bit of an indent, a soft wave or indent around it. Gives it more of a rounded look and shape to the eye. And just a little bit up to the side. I gave it, and if you want to, a start of a brow, just for fun, kind of like a furrowed brow. You can give it more of a, some sort of, spooky look. I don't overdo it, so when you do it, it's going to look a little bit much, but I kind of put some brown over top to soften that look, to make it look more relaxed. Just kind of brush it upwards like you're making brows in a way. It's kind of funny. But make sure I'm making sure that I'm curling it over so it's up and kind of curled a bit over. And with this, so again, it's kind of following where that cheekbone is going. And you can streak in with this peach. I just kind of do lots of streaks, kind of curling down, very light and soft, flowing down to where the jaw and the teeth are going to be. There's lots of streaks filled in here. Kind of messy, right? So just really messy, because there's a lot going on in here. There's a lot of empty hollowness in this area. So my trick for that area, you can go back to a little bit of a bigger brush. You can take a little bit of your black paint again. I like to just go over this side and just lightly brush so I can get more of the darkness here, and you can see less of the outlines on the side, or just more of a shadowed look. It's going to be more shadowed and dark over on the side too, so it's a bit more of a shadowed look and indent coming from the sides. Small steps, small steps. Okay, wash it off again. Okay, let's go back to the top here. I brushed in some brownish kind of gold looking paint. So if you have gold, use it. Raw sienna is pretty close. Same with yellow ochre. So I have my leftover raw sienna type of paint that we mixed. For a little bit of a different brown, if you prefer it more bronze, take a bit more red. So the trick is not taking too much blue or black. We added only a little bit of blue into it. So it's mostly orange, remember, mostly orange. Take a nice big scoop of yellow. There's a small couple dots of red, and then a couple dots of blue. But the more blue and if you add black, the darker it looks. And you can also just add more red for more of a bronzy kind of brown look. Okay, so let's start with this. What I did up here is I just went around, touch water, follow from the side here, all the way around. You know, skulls, they have lots of shape to them. I don't try to make it overly perfect. Especially, it can have some imperfections, right? I like to, along the side, mostly fill in the top part, give it a bit more dimension. So this is more of the back part of the head, and this is more of the forehead. So we do have pretty large heads. Just give that more of a fill. Take some more paint. And for me, I started doing more of like a cross hatching. This is really bright. I'm actually going to go back to, I don't know, I think I touched white or something. I'm going to go back to a little bit of a darker, maybe add a touch of black into it. Get it a little bit darker. A little bit more black, it just gets a bit darker. So I started just thinking impressionist. Very loose strokes. Maybe some coming down, swiping down a little bit if you like that type of look. Yep, see some cross hatching. It wasn't anything in particular. I just made it up on the spot. So you can play around with it. It kind of gives it more of a interesting kind of more dimension, but different reflective colors around the skull. I added a bit more black, so if you want it even darker, just a touch more black again. Even dark brown is nice. You can wipe off extra paint so that it comes off more transparent. and like a dry brush. Just a little bit on the sides towards the black, so it looks like it's shadowed just behind the eye and behind the where the ears would be. So I went pretty close to the eye socket. I wanted it to be really close to these eyes here. Right? You can just pop out, you can add a couple little streaks, very circular at the very bottom right of the eye, or you could do top. You can do opposite sides. As long as they're kind of matching, it makes a bit of sense. And just a little bit dabbed into the nose. I also like to use more of this dark brown where the cheekbone and the cheek area is. Maybe a smaller brush is a good idea. And I just streak in. Add lots of little streaks in here, especially along the top of where the teeth and gum line is going to be. So you can see it's pretty dark. It's not too light. It's not a super light brown. Lots of streaks, kind of messy. Okay, how are we doing? I know this is a bit of a challenging painting, right? Because, I mean, for some of us, if we like things to be exact, this is definitely a different style. So for me, I like to just put in a little bit of a dusty rose. Again, you can stick with browns or some gold paint. You don't have to do the colors I'm doing. But if you want to do more of a dusty rose, you're going to make your pink again. See the red, some white, so you get more of a lighter pink, so a scoop of yellow. And then I add in a dot of black. It mutes the tone, and add another dot of black. Not too much. See, it's like a grayish sort of pink, questionably on the purple side, even though we didn't add any blue. And I put this in just out from the cheekbone or anywhere else. So if you really like this color, you can add some. I did some cross hatching up here. I added color randomly throughout the skull for more of a dramatic effect. So it looks like it's reflecting a lot of color. And you can just go over other colors. So if you don't like certain colors, just go over it with a different color. Maybe I'll put some of this along this eye section, the rim of it. We'll just try to streak this in. Just some soft waves coming down and meeting with the gum line. Yeah, maybe some on the side of the head. Sure, why not? Just a couple little streaks here and there. So if you want a soft, you can use any color for this. You can add just a soft little highlight on that bottom right. If you want it a little bit brighter to give it more of the, you can see inside of it a little bit more, but yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to touch up on this eye really quick, make sure that just giving it a little bit more of a bigger eye look. Okay, just on one side, I felt like it just needed a little bit more. Okay, washed off the small brush. For more of a reflective spot at the top of the skull, maybe your medium brush. It can be round, it can be flat. Just take a little bit of white, but very lightly coated. Don't really want too much water on my brush at all, so if you want to dry it off, that'd be probably a good idea. So very little. I'm going to wipe off the white paint. And you can see this top corner. I'm just going to swipe along the side. Do some swipes. Like a nice shiny spot. So it's curved. It's curved and it's curled because of the roundness. And you can put that anywhere else. And you can put it like in the middle of the forehead a little bit here too. You can highlight some of the edges. Just anywhere for a little bit more of a brightness. But with the white, I would be careful with white because it's a little bit, it's pretty powerful with the brightness. Okay. So this blue part here, one of the other things you could do to get more color in, or if you want to get a little bit darker, I'm just going to go back to my dark brown, but I'm going to use very little paint. So red and yellow about equal parts. I'm going to take a little bit of black, get it dark again. Wipe off most of my paint here. And just, I'm going to add actually a touch of blue to it because I think the blue complements the blue behind it. Yeah, let's do that. Touch of blue in with the brown. So it gets a bit more bluish, but also has that brown with it. It's nice and dark. I'm just, with very little paint, kind of swiping this around. Get some shadow in here. Mixed in with the colors. The blue with the brown. Put some behind the eye. Accent that shadow. I'm going close to the, like that brow line that I was talking about before. Toning it down now. It doesn't look too, hopefully too obvious, but I'm keeping it darker more on the very corners. So on the, not the inner side of the eye, but on the furthest away outer part of the eye. It helps with the shaping. So you have more of the brightness and the lift on the inner part of the eye. It's also probably a good idea just to give it some extra darkness in between the eye here. Just streaking it upwards. So it's right in here. It goes right down the middle. And in terms of smoothing anything out, if you just go to a little bit of a lighter brown, or you can go back to your teal. Teal's a nice color. This is my light brown. Remember we made that kind of golden looking brown? Just a couple streaks here. Then I will pick up my teal again. Just in case. You don't want it to go too high up. So I'm just clearing that. Just in case it looks like it goes too high up for a brow. And also just some different directions here to give it more of a flatter look instead of too of a furry brow look up here. There's just teal again. I like the extra little bit of blue added in my teal. So if I take another little extra bit of blue and a touch of black, I get a nice dark version of it. I think it's kind of cool. I just add that throughout. All right. I am washing off this brush. Let's do a little bit of the lower part. So the mouth area. This is my smaller, more detailed brush. So I'm just letting this dry for a minute. You can, after we do a bit more of this, you can come back and do more details and touch-ups up here, wherever you see fit. I might swipe in and streak in more of like some brown or gold. And again, if you have some gold metallic colors, it'd probably be nice to just put it over top. In terms of color for down here, I did lots of colors. I did lots of the same colors that I was already using. Let's start with our dusty rose. I call it a dusty rose. It's, you know, the pink with some yellow and then a little bit of black to give it this slightly kind of purpley pink color. But it's not bright, right? It's very grayish. Okay. So a touch of water, then with our detailed brush, if you want to keep it simple, you can just do, you can take out where the bone is for before it becomes your teeth and just do teeth at the top and bottom. So remember, keep it kind of, if you actually, what's great is that you can feel, if you touch your face, you can kind of feel how it kind of sticks out a little bit from your nose down. So it kind of goes in and just does a little swoop out and curves down slightly. It's not a straight line. It's slightly bent because it sticks out a little bit. And if you're just like, I have no idea what you're even talking about or referring to, that's fine. You can just, like I said, do the teeth at the top and the teeth at the bottom. and it will still look great. So I'm just going over some of these, and over on the side, let's have a little darker color, so more black mixed with a little bit of this dusty rose color. So it looks like it's just a little bit darker along here. Okay, this is a nice shadowed color for the very edges. Not as obvious. So I'm just making a little bit thicker just along the bottoms of these. I didn't go too far down because I still have to put some teeth in. I just made it a little bit thicker, and you don't need to make things too precise. But as long as they're really close together. See, it's really close together here. Let's go back to our lighter version of the dusty rose. And when you're making the teeth, just below it, I'm just going to press. Just go kind of below each section. And I'm starting to curve the teeth kind of more inwards. So they start curving more, a little bit inwards towards the center. So just slightly inwards a little bit and a little bit smaller towards the back. So very close together. Just try to use more of your black with that same color so it becomes more of a shadowed color, and you can just kind of go a little bit closer together so it gives it more of that shadowed look in between. But yeah, see, very close together, almost touching. Basically touching, actually. And the ones in the very front, you can just go a little bit longer. Okay. Oh, this is my dark. See the shadowed color? Whenever you have a color on your brush, feel free to just put it and reflect it anywhere else in the skull or on the skull. So if you're like, oh, I just want to put a little bit here, put some up here just for fun. I don't mind doing that. I just did them in different directions. That was my style. Okay, so for the bottom teeth, we can probably take a guess on what to do next. Go back to that same previous color, the dusty rose. So the bottom, I left a little bit of a gap. Right, you can see there's a little bit of a gap right in here, but it's still pretty close together. And oh, I do want to get rid of this white line before I do that because it will probably drive me nuts. I am going to put black. So it's okay if it's wet black. I have an idea of where it ends. And you can actually take black, so you can just lightly streak in this black just a little bit from the top into this gum line area, right? There's some little trimmings around, keep things nice and sharp. There. So even though it is wet, it's okay. It'll keep it kind of shadowed at the same time. So just below, usually they're sort of in line with each other, not too offset. So I'm going to, and the good thing is we're not making the whole entire rest of the skulls. We're not having to do like the chin area and the bottom gum line. See how they're just kind of curving, slightly curved towards in, right? They're not really going up and down super straight, and they're getting a little bit closer. Since like it's round, you want to imagine that because it's the way that it is, you kind of your mouth comes down a little bit for a bit of a roundness, and then goes back up for the jawline to give it that rounded look. So it comes up a little bit this way. So we're just following that curve that we were doing, slightly curved up. And they just get a little bit closer together and smaller because it's like a little further away. So just keep them slightly more curved in. And just making sure it's kind of level somewhat. I'm taking a little bit more black paint on my brush, and I do want to give it more of a shadowed, very faint, that you can barely see it look on the very farther bottom teeth there. And then I wash this off. So I just touch up a little bit with some of my, you can go to a peach color, you can go to, you can use a bit of teal, any color, right? So the peach color was like yellow, red, a little bit more yellow, and a bunch of white. So you can use more of a peach tone because it's kind of neutral in color. So this you can have very gently, just trying to keep my brush kind of flat. So for the teeth and the gum line down here, oh goodness, kind of curves over a little bit. And just kind of follow that down. Add a little bit of a highlight on some of the teeth. See how I just kind of curled it down a little bit more on that side. Let's go a bit closer. Thanks for joining. You can always watch later. My name is Liesel. Like sound and music. I know some of us painted with me before, and I know this is a very challenging painting, but you know what? I love seeing results, and I'm sure some of us are up for challenges too. Okay, so on this side I'm actually keeping it more shadowed for the rose. So if you don't want to try too hard on that side, that's fine too. But I'll just show you for the sake of it. So like I did over here, see little highlights, just kind of curved in a little bit more in some of that gum line. It gives it a lot more depth and interest. When you take a step back, you'll really appreciate that. Okay, so a little bit on the bottom. So I want to make sure these two areas are basically touching each other. And this kind of gum line is going a little bit into the teeth, nice and close to it. Almost, basically overlapping. Right. And you can give it more of a shape on, you can do more of a canine sort of look on some of the teeth, or especially, those canines that you have on the sides. You can do that too if you want to be fun and fancy like that. I think it's nice. Okay, so a little bit of my peach, very little paint. I like to wipe off a lot of my paint here when I'm brushing along, anywhere to just highlight softly. And soft little touches just above the eye because it is lifted a little bit. And we have all of that area just a little bit coming from where the teeth are coming, from this gum line here. Just light little streaks following up very gently. Not too much paint whatsoever. Super creepy. Just a little bit here on the inner part of the eye. So it's like pretty close together overall between where the noses and the eyes are. And washing this off. Okay. So if you have a tiny bit of teal left over, I'm going to make sure that when I go over very softly and gently, I'm just putting a slight little line, if you want to do this, right in the middle. See how it's just kind of right in between here? And teal is kind of nice to highlight around the nose or into any of the teeth and cheek area so that you have the color reflecting throughout. It's not just on the top, it's kind of everywhere. Just gently maybe just along some of this area too. Okay. All right. Wash that off again. I think now we can start thinking about putting it on the books, putting some fun things around, anything you want to put around too. Yeah, let's do that. I made purple for the first book, and then I put a little yellowy gold at the bottom. So red and a little bit of blue. So big scoop of red, a little bit of blue to give it more of a purple look. It's not equal parts. So just a little bit of white added in and you get more of a violet color. Still using my small brush. So where I placed this, I made sure it was all nicely angled as well. You can see this more towards the bottom of the cheekbone. Put a short line. Okay, just angled out. And then I'm going to bring this down. I'll just angle it down, so bring it kind of straight down, see, like that. And then the skull is sitting nicely on the top, so we don't want it to, unless you want it hanging over the edge, but generally not really. I'm going to have this come down so that it's, when you have it cut across, it's going to be parallel to this line. So this line is going to be parallel to it. I'm going to cut that across here. And we want this to end so that when the line goes parallel to this one, it kind of cuts up to where it goes up to where the bottom of this cheekbone is once again. Okay, so this is the same angle over here, and this is the same angle as over there. So you can adjust it if you need to. And we always have black to change it up. All right. Here's what we have to do. From this corner, so the very bottom left corner, I'm going to do a soft, curve for the bind of the book. You know how it's a bit rounded? Nice bend. See? And let's do it again right here. So nice curve there. Then we're going to connect the two ends from the bottom. We want to connect that. Let's make sure that this is the same, parallel to this, so it's about the same width all the way through. And we can easily, I just want to fill that in too. Let's fill it in. Take your purple again. So the page is in between from this bottom, parallel line, again, same as this one, right to the end here. This is the bottom of the cover of the book, and in between are going to be the pages on this side. I like to add a touch of black to my purple, so a little dip of black, just to fill in the top part more shadowed. Or you can change it up. You can have it more highlight at the top and more shadowed along the edge here on the side. I like the dark color up here because it kind of blends a little bit with the skull. You don't have to worry about, too much of painting around the skull too exact. But you can even get a little bit of this color into the face too, right? Just kind of let it mix a little bit and just reflect it into even some of the teeth. Lightly tap at the bottom where the teeth are. Yeah, that's a good start. So personally, I added more black onto my brush. I didn't wash it off. And I just gave it extra shadow around here. So just around the skull in general, and especially the bottom. Just gave it more of a shadow. Lightly tapped and streaked along so that it was more dark, close from, the shadow from the skull, giving it more darkness surrounding it. You can use black to give it more of a sharper edge look on some of the edges of the book. just cleaning up some of the lines. You can have a better idea of how this is looking. Okay, and this is pure black, right? Because we want to keep it nice and sharp there. Pull this back a little bit. We'll do the pages at the same time after we do the next book. And I just decided to do, similar color to up here, some sort of goldish looking color. Take yellow, a little bit of red. So it's like that raw sienna or yellow ochre. Touch of blue. You can add a little bit of white to it. A little bit of white. If it's losing color, you just take a little bit more yellow and a dot of red. And I'll take a bit more yellow. A bit more of a yellowy gold. It doesn't look very pleasant on your palette at first. Remember that. Okay. So this one, pretty easy, just because you don't have to do as much as you did before. All right, so again, just going to do another curve close to where this one is. And then over towards the end, curve, meet that together. So they're about the same. It's about the same thickness from the top of the the bottom of the purple book to the bottom of your second book. And then from this bottom here, I'm just going to put that across. Yeah. There we go. Let's fill this in. So I just put black right underneath my purple book, which actually is really helpful for filling this in because it picks it up and just keeps it nice and shadowed. See how it keeps it nice and dark right at the top there? Just a little hack for cleaning up the edge around the purple. Okay, now you have some sort of stack of books. Just 2, but you can always add 3. I don't even wash the brush off. I just take yellow and white. Just mix together very loosely. It's fine. This is where you can, change things up. You can put along the spine just a little bit of a highlight in the middle. You can, down here I kept it darker, so maybe not so much there. I actually just washed this off. Take a little bit of black and clean up that edge too. So it's very, very much more of a darker edge over here where the book is. So darkness over here. Went along the edge here. You can just lightly go along the bottom so that you can get it more shadowed along the bottom of this spine of the book for the gold one. And as for pages, I wouldn't do white because white means it is so brand new, which I don't feel like is the vibe of this painting. I feel like the vibe of this painting is old, except for the rose, but oops. There we go. Let's take yellow, touch of black, so just a dot, right? And you can see it's mucky in color, touch of red, and then we're going to take a nice big scoop of white. We get some sort of grayish, beige, something neutral in tone. It can be slightly brownish looking. So there you go. It just looks like a color that you wouldn't want to paint really anything except, pages. It makes sense. Let's try this out. So I'm just doing a lot of streaks here. Just filling this in for the most part. Okay, and down here, same thing. Wash it off. Take black and streak that gently in between, but mostly where it starts, where the beginning is right here. And then just lightly streak it. You can use a fan brush and feather it in. So it looks like there's some shadow in between the pages. I'm going back to my colors to put in the bottom, make it a bit more obvious right now. Put in my purple again. Purple here. I want to give it a bit of a highlight so I can see in between the two books. You can highlight some more white with your purple or add a touch more blue if you want more of a blue highlight because it picks up some of maybe the blue and the teal in the face. Maybe just a little bit along the top. Touch of black added maybe along the bottom. I like to take a little bit of white on my brush. I didn't wash it off. I kind of use the same colors on my brush for the most part. And just very gently go along some of the edges to pop out some of the corners. And this corner, maybe a little bit along the top here. And it stands out just a little bit more. Okay, wash that off. Just going back to my purple, I want to bring this out just a little bit more. That corner here. Yeah, I want it to be out a little bit more. Just seemed like it was too inwards. Okay. All right. Now, if you have some browns left over, I think it's a nice thing to add into your gold book. You don't have to do all these things. You can just do, more of a simpler, not too many colors reflecting on each other. I put a little bit of brown down here. So that was yellow and some red. So you get orange first, and then just a touch of black. Right, and then you get more of that warm brown showing through. So that's one thing that you can add in. You can also use a bit of this brown to put in for some of the pages. I kind of like this brown, mostly to put it in the skull. And use your finger to soften it too. Just kind of use my finger to smudge it. It's a bit more gentle. Now then, a touch more black in here. I'm just keeping it more creased. So this is a touch more black on my brush. So more of a dark brown. A little bit in this nose. I'm going to smudge it. A little bit in the nose. Smudge it. Okay, and any black to sharpen up any of the eye sockets or inside the nose. And then we'll start with some of the leaves, and we can put a flower. Wipe off a little extra paint. So I kept this nice and shadowed on the side here. And just a little bit into, very lightly with some light brushing with the dark brown towards the sides of the face. And, at the bottom of the teeth and the mouth here. So I start my base coat with the flower, wash this off, and take more of a, you can take your dusty rose to start if you have any left over, or you can start with more of a light pink. So red and white. I don't mind mixing over top of a previous color. Depends on the color. Maybe not something so dark, but touch of brown is fine. See, I put a little bit of brown in. It doesn't matter. I'm actually going to paint red over top later. It just gives it a nice undertone of a highlight. Okay, making this roses to make are actually pretty awesome and easy. let's plant it. So I want more of the top, like the middle of the flower, but it's more towards the top. Really close to the face, not touching the face, but just outside of it. And then I just kind of swirl it around. And again, I swirl it around. I like to envision petals as I do it. So put a little curve going around, a break, and a petal, maybe another petal. You can overlap too. Okay. Then build outwards, another sort of petal down here. And I just build out until I'm happy with how many petals are going around and how big it is. But notice how it's not really going further out this way. I'm keeping it more close together over here, more tightly knit. And the petals you see more on this side. So I'm filling it for the most part in pretty solidly. So there's not a lot of gaps in between. So there's the start of the rose. Then starting with our greenery, I put the stems around it after I put my leaves. You can start making green inside some of your brown too. This is my golden brown, yellow, and a little bit of blue. You get green. So mostly yellow and a little bit of blue, depending on how green or teal you want it to be. Any green will work. I mix it inside some of the brown, and it softens the green and makes it look more neutral and not as super bright. Even though it does look pretty bright, it's not vibrant neon green. So you can add a little bit of brown to your green to keep it softer. I'm just doing more like the shapes, just kind of filling it half in. You can fill it all in, most of it in. Do that. See, and I'm just going to do another one over here. Nice curve, point, and then it goes out around it and meets back. Almost like a pea pod in a way. Sometimes you can have leaves, so just outside, I'm going to do a longer one. More narrow, but thinner and longer. That's another way we can do it for different perspective. And then I have another leaf here. One kind of curving down. You can have it overlap if they happen to overlap. Next to the books. I didn't leave too much space for it, but I'll put a curve up here. And maybe another one off page. Sure. You can add a leaf around where your rose is. You can do it now before you have to finish it up. So leaf. So you want to envision it's behind it. So I'm just kind of going just around it, doing a little point. And then it comes down and disappears behind the rose. I put a little leaf down here too. Couple on the side. This one I did a little bit crazy, but that's okay. I'll take black and I'll just change it up a little bit. So I did almost like a string of pearls coming down the side of the books. Looks like it's the rose is kind of sitting on it. What I do with my green, I kind of do circular motions. So a little bit going into my rose, circular motions, and I'm going to curve it so it starts coming down, but a little bit more towards inwards, a little bit curved down. So it looks like it's hanging down, not too straight. So it's a little bit more this way, but just very slight. And just a little bit heavier at the top, less and more smaller towards the bottom. Okay, washed off the brush and paint. I am just touching up with that dusty rose. If you feel like it's a bit empty in here, it was honestly just some streaky, wavy lines meeting down with some of those gum line and teeth. I'm taking black on my clean brush, and you can put in some black into the middles and edges of your leaves. I think it adds a little bit more interest too. I think it makes it look kind of like it's got more depth to it. Mostly kind of streaking from the bottom upwards. More of an indent as well. You can go along the edges. So if I go along some of the edges here, they look a little bit thinner. Extra shadow. Okay, this side I went a little bit crazy over here, so I'm going to change that up a bit. This is black, and don't forget to keep it a little bit more shadow just along the edge and sides of the head, just in case. So on this leaf, you can go right in the middle, just streak that in, a little bit on the sides, give it an extra shadow going around here. Around some of the sides of this leaf, coming from the bottom, streaking upwards. And I did add a little bit of shadow into the green. So I lightly touched up in between some of my little circular green spots and just blobbed in just around it to start all that depth and to get more of that shadow in between all of that string of pearl kind of, it's like a succulent for that plant. There. Okay, now I'm going to do a highlight. I am going to take more of a bright green, white, take yellow, so light yellow, tiny dot of blue. So it's mostly a yellowy, almost neon looking, but yeah, very bright. Mostly yellow, just a dot of blue. Add more yellow if it's too green. You want it to be more yellowy green. Okay, so on the opposite side of where my shadows are generally, I felt like this side would be hitting more of where it's hitting the light. So I just highlight it more on that side, see more on the edge, maybe right here. And maybe a little bit here. See, just more on the highlighted side, the brighter side. Stands out a little bit more too. And just with a little bit of this paint, just light little touches more on the already lighter green, not too much on the black. I just mimic circular motions, like there's lots piled on each other, connected, flowing down. And I like to smooth this out with yellow and blue, dot of black, but no white. Nice dark color. And you can just smooth things out, kind of go close to your highlight. And it goes from light to a little bit darker. Down here, light little taps. Close to my highlight, it kind of tones it down. And yeah, that's pretty much all I really do for the leaves. Unless you want to add more green into some of them. Okay. Washed it off. Well, thanks, Brian. Good. For the rose, let's put in some of that red. I do a little bit of shadow, so some dark red, almost black in between to give it more of a divided look with the petals, and then some brown for some of the stems for the greenery around it. And of course, you can add more things to it as well. Okay, so I'm going to take red. Just plain red is fine. Plain red, and I mostly go around almost everything here. Just blob it in. I don't know if you've noticed, but my style is a little bit messy. I kind of like the look that it brings with a bit more texture and the loose brushwork. So red and a touch of black. Take a scoop of red, just a little touch of black here. Get a nice deep red. Remember, we only want a little bit of black. You'll notice that with too much black, it looks mostly black, but this is a deep red. And this is good to put right over top of any dark areas if you see black still, and mostly painted over most of your red. I didn't want it to be overly bright red. I liked the deep red for the most part. Let's go closer. Okay, let's tilt this a little bit so you can see some of that dark red in here. And I immediately just take more black on my brush. So it's just black at this point. So right in the middle, there's, the very center of the road. I'm just outlining a little bit around here. It's almost like you're just swirling it out, a little bit of a gap, and you can add what looks like a divided petal in between. Nice and kind of curved. They're not just sort of wavy too, so they have some shape to the petals. You just kind of just make it up as you go too. You don't need to force anything. Each one's always going to look a little bit different. Maybe even a little bit on the bottom of some of these petals. Just take a little bit extra red. This is just pure red on my brush. And you can go over some of that black, so it's not too black looking. And then I just let that sit before I do a final little highlight. Try that off. So when you're doing your last little touches, take a step back, look at your painting. Things occur to you. This is not one of those paintings that I put one brush stroke here and I put one there. It's like very generalized. We have generally highlights around the nose, the eye socket, but not too much on the eyebrow area. I just put it a little bit, very kind of brown, light brown in this top corner. It does dip in, slightly curved in, so that you still see the other side of the skull and here more shadowed. We had our teal that you can keep handy when highlighting. So if I take a bit of my teal and I just put in some of them into a couple bits of the teeth as well. So you can get a little bit of that reflecting through. And our brown, let's make our brown again, because we're going to use it for the stems. You can actually use your dark red. So dark red, take all of your dirty yellow, mix it with a little bit of that. It just makes a bunch of brown. You only want to mix it with a little bit. You need a bunch of yellow to start making it more of a brown color. And then, of course, touch of black to your liking. Gives it more of a deeper grayish look. And so this is the stuff that I was mostly putting up here. And you can use this to put in stems just gently for the leaves. Mostly on this side. You don't really see it anywhere else. Yeah, and this was the brown that I mostly put at the bottom of my golden book. I even streaked and kind of curved it this way, but this is optional. See, along the top, I did opposite sort of strokes there. Okay, oops, that is red. Did not want red. Okay, a little bit of black just to clean it up. Then our little highlight on that rose. I think the dusty pink is good. Bit of white added to your dark red. Kind of gives it a purpley color, but also pinkish at the same time. I think it's nice. Take a bit of this. And then you can just go along some of the edges of wherever you see a petal. So it just gives it more shape to any of the petals that you want to pop out. A little bit in the middle, lightly almost swirled out. So again, take that step back, see how it's looking. This is my dark brown. And then you can sign your painting whenever you feel like you're done. It's kind of fun to just take colors whenever you have a color in your brush and put it somewhere else on your painting. I always thought that was fun to do. Okay, so those are the little touch-ups. Yeah, thanks for joining me. I know this was a challenge. You can tell me it was a challenge if you want to go to our Facebook page under groups. So you can do the support group that we have, artist palette, drawing and painting support group. I like seeing interpretations, and I say sketch and trace around the skull that I've posted so that you can just trace around it. I find that the easier way to build off of making a skull instead of having to hand draw it from scratch. But I did show you that it starts with a circle, and basically from there it's pretty straightforward when you're trying to put the cheekbones in that are meeting or close to the bottom of the circle, and the nose basically touches the bottom of the circle. And then you extend a little bit for that mouth. Okay, thank you everyone. Looking forward to seeing all of those paintings whenever you are done. And we have lots more coming up, so you can always check it out on our website, artistpaletteDurham.com. It's hard to stop playing with it, but I think I'll just leave it alone. I'm gonna leave it for now. Okay, thank you guys. Bye.